Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, December 28th, 2012. Well, just two stories I'm talking about today, and that is the Fiscal Cliff fiasco, which is disgusting, and also the Middle East. And, I like to call the Fiscal Cliff non-negotiations really the blame game theater. And both Democrats and Republicans are responsible for this. Those guys and women, those women and men are not doing their jobs. They're supposed to handle the affairs of the United States of America. They're supposed to handle the finances, and the president's supposed to sign bills, and none of that is happening. It's just who's going to get the blame. I mean, if we're going over the fiscal cliff, and it appears we are going to go over. There may be some small deal patch, but we're going over. I mean, when you take a look at people like, Democratic bigwig, former presidential candidate and also former governor of Vermont, Howard Dean, who said, hey, let's face it, everybody has to pay more taxes. Maybe that's what they want. That's what the Republicans say. But on the other side, the Republicans, they haven't helped the budget. I mean, we had this big prescription drug benefit and during the Bush 43 administration that wasn't paid for. We had two wars. We put on the credit card, had the Federal Reserve print up tons of money. I mean, if you want to talk about cuts, how about those cuts? And nobody on either side of the aisle will talk about the $40 billion a month banker bailout, ongoing, open-ended by the Fed. Everybody thinks that's a good idea. Not a word. And not a word about the $45 billion a month the Federal Reserve is printing to buy treasuries. $85 billion, open-ended, their term, each and every month. That's outrageous. That's immoral. That's disgusting. And as far as this fiscal cliff, I mean, you should go on my site and take a look at Carl Denninger. He laid out a pretty good, idea of what's going on with the fiscal cliff. He thinks it's the best thing that can happen. And yes, we are going to have tax increases. Either way, we're going to have tax increases. No, I don't think that's the answer. Taxing more and spending more. I don't. But we are going to have tax increases. And hey, the Republicans should have thought about that before we had all these wars and all these expenditures and all these prescription drug benefits. We didn't fund that. I mean, people like John Williams say, hey, if we do go over the fiscal cliff in this unorganized way, he thinks it could trigger confidence problems that we might never recover from. And think about this. The big problem is people saying, hey, I don't want to own U.S. Treasuries. I don't want to own that debt. 12 trillion U.S. liquid dollar assets held outside the country. I'm going to sell that. I'm not going to get paid back in anything resembling any kind of an interest or any kind of buying power of the money I loan the U.S. government. That's the big problem. And I mean, we really need to have an adult conversation to where, hey, we've taken, a little more than $2 trillion. We're spending a little more than $3 trillion. That's on a cash basis. And really the real deficit, if you use generally accepted accounting principles that all corporations in America use, we would have a real annual deficit last year of $7 trillion, counting for everything that we have to pay for. First thing I'd cut is the banker bailout. That's outrageous. That's outrageous that we're buying the fraud and mistakes of bankers, and not a single one of these guys has been put in jail. And all the fines, they fine them for, mortgage-backed securities. They fine them for the LIBOR, rate-rigging scandal. They fine them for money laundering for drug cartels and terrorists. That's outrageous. Really outrageous. Next up, Middle East, on the western side, Syria, knockdown, drag-out, civil war. It's the Sunnis on one side, and that's basically in part al-Qaeda, and that's the West is backing them, including the U.S. government. And on the other side is, Hezbollah, and that is, backed by Russia, China to a lesser part, and Iran. And 44,000 Syrians have died in this civil war. It's a Hatfields and McCoys. They're trying to get some kind of a resolution, but they're going at it tooth and nail. And it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. The big problem is it's spilling over into Turkey, into Lebanon, and possibly Jordan, and it becoming a wider war. That's the big fear. On the eastern side of the Middle East, over in Iran, they're conducting war games. In naval war games, from the Persian Gulf all the way through the Strait of Hormuz, all the way out to the northern Indian Ocean. 40% of seaborne oil travels through this narrow strait, 30 miles wide, on the southern border of Iran. And, of course, the United States and its allies have heavy naval presence there, and their Iranians are conducting war games, which creeps me out, frankly. I mean, wars can get started by accident. Wars can get started by the accidental missile hitting a ship, a U.S. ship. Wars can also be false flag operations or also started intentionally. Either way, war with Iran from anyone is going to be an unqualified disaster. I mean, who's going to take their oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz, even if the U.S. and the Germans and the French say, oh, it's all open, it's all ready to go, and the Iranians saying, hey, if we can, we're going to sink your oil tanker right in the middle of the strait. That would shut traffic down. Goodbye, $100 a barrel oil. Hello, $200, $250, $300 barrel oil. In a heartbeat. And listen, as far as Israel and Hamas, that was a ceasefire. That was not resolved in the Gaza on Israel's southern border. That was a ceasefire. The Iranian nuclear program, that is not solved. I mean, you had Benjamin Netanyahu standing up in front of the United Nations saying, hey, here's a red line. It's a big red ball with a bomb. And when it gets to this red line, that's it. Does a red line happen sometime in 2013? I think all the experts say yes, they'll have enough material in 2013. Either way, I look for more violence in the Middle East, and I hope I am wrong. But a wider war in the Middle East, a shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz, and the fragile global economy that we're teetering on insolvency, in many Western countries around the world, it's not a good scenario whatsoever. Something very dangerous, and that's the real wild card: war in the Middle East, and it will be a significant war. I think, when it happens, and I think it's only a matter of time. I don't care who starts it. Well, that's the way I see it. I'm Greg Hunter. Thank you so much for supporting the site. Thank you for your donations. Thank you for coming here to USAWatchdog.com. We had a good year. We're looking for a better year next year. That's the way I see it. I'm Greg Hunter. Thanks again for supporting USAWatchdog.com.